Okay,
All right.
thank
Well, welcome everybody to VARC Solutions Bookkeeping Academy. We have a guest presenter today, a frequent contributor to our conversations, Leslie Simmons. She's also one of our VIPP partners, QuickBooks consultant extraordinaire as well. And we were just chatting the other day, and she brought up the topic of how do you address unbilled charges that are never going to get billed, and so thought it would be a great bookkeeping academy topic. So Leslie, thanks for coming, and I'll turn off my camera and just let you do your thing.
Thanks. I only bring this topic up because I've been doing more and more of these migrations from desktop to online. And QuickBooks Desktop lets people mark expenses as billable and then inactivate that client. You know, QuickBooks Desktop allows you to do things that QuickBooks Online does not. So what I was faced with most recently was a client that had thousands and thousands, and I don't even know how many, but it came out to like $4.5 million worth of unbilled charges. And the easiest way to do it, obviously, so I'm going to just assume no people don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to just show you where to turn this stuff on. I am in Craig's landscaping, that's the sample file. And when you go into the account and settings and you go to expenses, there's an option here to make expenses or items billable. We have that option also, that preference setting in desktop, but it's the default. So people don't know you're really supposed to turn that off. So when you import all these transactions into online, now you're faced with possibly, as in my case, thousands, maybe 200,000 or 300,000, probably more transactions, and there's no way that you can do them manually. So what it looks like when you're in QuickBooks Online, when it comes over, is I'm going to just randomly create a vendor so you can just see. And I'm going to just take something that's here. This is just the sample file, and I'm just taking things. This is what happens is it gets marked as billable. And when it gets marked as billable, it's going to go to a customer. And that customer can't be inactivated because it's got all these billable charges. So let me show you, just add this, finish the transaction. So you could theoretically have hundreds of these types of transactions. And what it looks like is you go to your reports and you'll see, you know, you have this unbilled time and unbilled charges, and you'll see that these things just are coming over. Here's the one that I just created. And you're like, well, the easiest way to get rid of this, you would think, is, oh, I'll just, open up each transaction and delete it. So what that means is you can go into your customer, and this is how you do it one by one, and you get carpal tunnel, and you just like hate yourself because it's so inefficient. But basically, this is what it looks like. And what you'd have to do is edit it, open the transaction again. So that's 1 click, 2 clicks, and then you'd have to go like this and manually unclick this. Then you'd have to, of course, go back into your account settings when you're done and turn off, so your client doesn't perpetuate it, turn off the setting. But what if you don't have the patience or the time to do them manually? There is also a hidden tool, which some people, I don't know where the heck ever this was introduced, but you go into your customer. Okay, so I'm in the customers, and you take away, here, I'm going to do it once again. So you go into your customers, you go into the menu or the address bar, and you take away the word customers. And then how are you supposed to know this? I have no idea, but you type in manage billable expense. And lo and behold, it pulls up this secret or hidden screen. And this is awesome, but it doesn't work in old files which have inactivated accounts or inactivated classes or inactivated services or products. So, and then you're like, okay, so it'll tell me, won't it? You know, what needs to be reactivated. No, you just get an error message which says, so sorry, can't do it. So I was left with a very old file, and I needed to know how to get rid of these things. So it's not the most efficient. And if anybody has any other ideas, I want to have it for my next time, because even with the shortcut I'm about to show you, it still took me too much time. So I go back to the test customer that has all these billable charges. I do want to mention, if you have more than 300 to do at a time, your entire QuickBooks will freeze and you'll be knocked out. So you can only import or do 300, like 297 transactions per invoice, which is a pain in the neck when somebody has 10,000. So I'm going to create a $0 invoice. So let me close all this garbage. Sure, you guys call it garbage too. So I call up my customer, I create an invoice, I add all these charges. Now I could, do this one by one, but that's annoying when you have 300. So I use, if you see up here in red, anything that I have in red is tied to the software called Right Tool. Okay, but if you didn't have Right Tool, you would have to go down and hit 0 and 0, 0. And this is all well and good when you don't, let's say, have 300 transactions or so on an invoice. So this little tool here allows me, so I'm going to go back to the beginning, put the numbers back in. I'm going to create the invoice. I'm going to add my billable, assuming I have hundreds. I would just do this copy down, click the cell. I have 3 rows. It turns it into a $0 invoice. I'm not sending it to anybody, so I'm just going to save it. Okay. But you can see this is a $0 invoice. I've turned all the amounts into 0. What that does is it has no impact on your profit and loss statement, your balance sheet. It shows that these guys are converted. And when I run that billable report, you're going to see it's all zeroed out. I do want to mention also about the secret hidden managed billable. Not only does it not tell you if there's an inactivated something, it also doesn't let you see the details. It takes all of this away and hides it. And if you have a client that still wants to see the billable charges, but they also want it off their books, that tricky thing with the managed billable expenses just simply doesn't work. So real briefly, we're going to now run the unbilled charges report, and you're going to see the test customer is not here. And you see this thing called charges. You could do that also to any of these things. So let's say video games by Dan. So I don't think QuickBooks Desktop even has billable charges. So I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to go to unbilled time charges. So I'm going to go to their Amy's Sanctuary. And this is just the last point, is that it doesn't just have to be billable charges. You can also do billable time. And the same thing goes, you just make this, you create literally, it's called a $0 invoice. And when you're done, you literally don't lose your information. I'm not even sure where that thing went. That how old that 175 was. The time chart 375. Here it is. So they had this in here. And so let's say this was back from 2005 and they just never charged it. It sits on the books. And that makes it so that you now can inactivate these customers, because that test customer that I had, I can now inactivate it because it has a $0 balance. And the client that I was working on, not only did it have 4.5 million and several thousands of, I really don't know how many transactions. It was a 25-page report that was my unbilled charges. It was awful. But I also had 1,000 customers that they had created that needed to be deleted. So all this is possible with the $0 invoice. And if you're not familiar with Right Tool, this tool is a game changer because it allows you to do a lot of things that you would normally do manually, but it automates it. That's all I have, Brad. I don't know
So
if I went too fast, but I wanted
no,
to leave
that was
time
great.
for
Great stuff.
questions.
I have some questions actually. So that preference, or no, sorry, that hidden manage, um, what was the
Yeah, this
URL
thing.
again?
Notice that I'm taking all this stuff away,
Yeah,
and then I put this thing,
manage billable expense. Yep.
and it's manage billable expense. So there's two E's
Yep.
in here.
So that manage billable expense hidden little window, that's sort of like in mass says, okay, as of this date that you choose, anything that was marked as billable prior to that date will be hidden, so it won't show up as a billable, um, something to be billed in the future, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can show you what it looks like, but basically everything disappears.
Yeah,
Your billable charges disappear, everything disappears, and you can't even, I don't know where to go look for it.
right.
I looked in the audit log. The other thing I should mention is, in addition to, if there's anything that's been inactivated, you get an error message. If you try to do more transactions than it thinks it can handle, it also, the whole screen just freezes.
Yeah,
And you're not told why.
yeah. And so this is the mass tool, but if you're not doing this, what you're basically saying is you got to go create an invoice, click add billable time, charges, whatever. And then in that, you're just using, instead of manually zeroing out every single line item, you're using that right tool to kind of copy the zero down all the way through hundreds
Yeah,
of lines potentially to save to save you time on doing that.
that's really all it is. And
Okay.
here, let me put that ABC Supply Company back in here.
Okay.
Um, and I'm just gonna, just add some more stuff. Okay, what I wanted to mention is the the problem is when your client has imported all this stuff, it comes over like this.
As billable by default.
Okay. And you can see that you could, oh, I inactivated. So let me just give
Mhm.
it to John Melton or somebody. The point is, you to prevent your client. All right, the easy, the slowest way is to open up each transaction and unclick the billable.
Mhm.
Okay, that's like hurts my brain. When you are done, you should go back into your account and settings before you hand the file over to the client who is just going to perpetuate the stupidity or the issue, rather. I'm not going to be
Mhm.
mean. You turn this make expenses and items billable off. That way, when they do create an expense transaction, that billable box is not even here.
Mhm.
What I also do is in these settings, and what I didn't do that as well, I didn't want to do too many changes, is I also turn off the customer column so that they don't just, I see these bookkeepers spending an awful lot of time filling in fields that aren't needed. So we
Yeah.
need to go into the settings, the global settings, and make sure they don't see the billable and they don't see the customer.
Right. And obviously we're making the assumption that there's a company that doesn't really ever bill for time and expenses, but
Right. That was the thing. It's like
yeah.
the thing the thing I've learned is that there's a setting in QuickBooks Desktop that allows you to turn billing on and off, but people leave it on.
Mm-hmm.
So it automatically creates the transaction that and marking it billable.
Yep.
So, you know, this is an example of when it was turned on, and it's an old file with maybe 20 years worth of data that got brought over,
Yep.
and you're like, holy crap, I'm going to grow old doing this. And the
So
client isn't really, they don't really appreciate, because it doesn't affect their books. So they don't appreciate the effort until maybe they do use a few customers, and then they complain about, why do I have so many customers? What can't you just get rid of them? And the
right.
answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, this is the reason I mentioned this, is that I needed a fast way to do this, because it's not, it doesn't affect their bottom line, so they don't always appreciate it. But Intuit is slowing down. QuickBooks is slowing down.
Yeah.
We can all feel it.
So let me ask you this. Two things. If you've created the invoices for those billable charges, all the amounts are zeroed out and you hit save, obviously that invoice is there with a $0. I know you can go in and just delete those invoices now and the charges won't go back into the billable state.
You don't want to delete the $0 invoices,
You
because
don't.
if you do, the billables just pop right back up again.
Are you sure? Have you?
Yeah, well, let's do it. Let me go customers. Where's my show include inactive?
The reason I asked that is because in desktop, um, my understanding is you can kind of do the same kind of thing, but when you save it, it effectively bills for those quote unquote items, and then even after that, if you delete the invoice, it doesn't put them back into billable.
But that's the problem with desktop. It doesn't, when it allows you to do things that accounting wise are not right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got these billable charges that were connected to an invoice. When you take away the invoice, they just go right, they're supposed to just go back where they were. They're
In
not
theory,
supposed to disappear.
yeah, in theory, but I think in desktop at least it doesn't put them
Yeah,
back
and
in
the thing is,
billable.
and then you lose your history. What
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do is, you want me to delete this transaction,
Yeah.
the invoice, I reactivated it. And the reason I'm going to create another tab, so we can also see the impact on the report at the same time. So I'm going to go back to, okay, so it's not here yet, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
haven't deleted this. Okay, now I'm going to get this invoice and I'm going to delete it. The ones that had all those billables on it. This is going to be interesting. Now they're all marked open again. And on my report, they're right back on here again.
Interesting. Okay.
So,
So QBO in that case does work differently than
right.
QuickBooks Desktop.
And that right there is the reason, when people think that they fixed things in desktop, they haven't fixed it when it comes to onto QuickBooks Online. And so I see people cleaning up in desktop, and I usually say to people, just give me your file, I'll clean it up in online. Because online is a much more, you may not believe me, it's accounting wise more rigorous
Mhm.
than, but accountants would probably have their toes curl. They don't think either software is any good. But you can
So
see it puts it right back in.
yeah.
And the only way to get rid of it is to associate it
Yeah.
with an invoice.
Yep.
And like
Interesting.
I said, um, I've done this before. I actually shut down an Intuit server when I tried to import 1,000 of these.
Wow.
So I
Well,
called Intuit and apologized.
so here's my follow-up question. So if you've got a
Yep.
desktop file that has all this stuff in there and you're about to import them into QBO, maybe through Sasant or some other tool, um, can you just turn off that preference in QBO before you import and have it not?
No, because when it's turned, and that's the other kicker. So if your QuickBooks desktop had those transactions with the billables as recurring charges, as recurring transactions, that gets carried over into QuickBooks Online when you use the migration tool. I don't know about Sasant if there's any difference, but when you migrate using the QuickBooks Online tool, those recurring charges recurring transactions come right back into QuickBooks Online, and then you use them and you're like, huh, okay, it looks fine to me. There's no billable column there because I've turned it off, right? There's no customer column, and yet it's still populating the billables.
Hmm.
So even though you can't see it on the transaction because you've turned it off so your client doesn't keep doing dumb stuff, it's still coming over.
Yeah.
So
You can't see it, but it's still there.
the only way to stop it is to turn it off into QuickBooks Desktop, and then when you do your import, clean it up in here.
Okay. All right, I've got one more thing I want to share related to this, and then team, if you've got any questions, if you've done this a different way or have a different way of doing it that you think is helpful, please do share. I want to real quickly just share from the desktop side. One of the desktop has the same problem. You're not thinking about it, you're not looking at it, and these charges are billable time, billable mileage, billable expenses. They're all getting accumulated there. And same thing, in QuickBooks Desktop, there's a reports, jobs, time and mileage, unbilled time, unbilled job costs, things like that. And it shows you all that stuff. There's actually in one of the menus, I think it's probably like under the customer menu, you can go in and say invoice for unbilled charges. And quite frankly, this may just be in enterprise solutions. I haven't checked Pro Premier, but I think, but customers invoice for unbilled charges, and it'll bring up a window that has every one of your customers and like literally the total balance of all the unbilled stuff. And you can, in that window, expand it and then click the checkbox next to hide, 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 hide. So if there's like 100 line items, you can go hide, 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 hide all the way down. And it will get rid of quote unquote those things, so that you don't have to invoice for them. Like literally, you can just tell it to hide them, and then it removes it off the unbilled report. It won't show up in the future for an invoice to include those charges. But same thing, if you've got 100, if you've got 500 or 1,000, clicking that hide button 500 times, down arrow space, down arrow space, down arrow space can help on that checkbox column. But one of the tricks in desktop is same thing. You just invoice for all of the unbilled charges for a given client, hit the save button on the invoice. It effectively marks it as billed, and this is where that distinction comes in between desktop and online. After that, you actually can delete the invoice and it doesn't put them back into the billable state. So that's doing that hide feature for each line item or each row when you're in the invoice for unbilled charges section, that's a big time saver. And then invoicing, checking them all off, and then voiding the invoice is another technique. So that's my only contribution to what you said, Leslie. You master at the QBO stuff as well. Any other questions, thoughts, contributions from the team? Angie, Tina, any of y'all that are doing conversions where that's a big problem that you have to clean up, that you've run into anything?
Mine typically don't have unbilled charges, but I have used that manage unbilled expenses hidden tool in the past.
Very cool. Very cool. How about the right tools? Have you guys, I know we all have right tools on our computers. Has everybody seen that copy down type of functionality?
That's in the paid version.
I was about to say, I don't recognize it. It's cool.
Yeah, no, it's not on the free version.
Leslie, is that something you've seen? Is that in the?
I don't know, I'm gonna go check. You know what, Hector Garcia and Mark Corum are putting so many things that are in the pro version into the free version. They're doing that. They did a lot of it last month, and I don't know if that's one of the things that is now one of the free. Let me see here if it goes.
Oh, I thought they were going the other direction. I thought they were moving a bunch of free stuff to the pro.
Well, no, that actually it went the other way. There's a lot more stuff in pro than there's ever been before. And a lot of basic things have been moved into the free version. You know what? I'm gonna suggest that it's probably part of the batch pro. I think that's where I'm finding, well, copy. You know what? I don't know. According to this, I have so much, almost all the features turned on. So I don't even know where, let me see if I can find it, if I do a search, copy down. But, you know, yeah, it says Batch Pro. That's
Batch
where it
Pro.
is.
Okay. So if that's something that team, if you feel like that would be helpful with clients in scenarios like that, obviously we can go out and get that pro version and make it a big help. Anybody else? Questions for Leslie? All right, Leslie, thank you so much. Really appreciate your contribution to the show and to the Bookkeeping Academy. And as always, love your input and insights. And for those of you that are watching and listening in, hope this is helpful. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.